Okay, let's get right into it. What we're talking about today is basically a shadow war, a high-stakes battle being fought not on a battlefield, but on these tiny microscopic circuits inside silicon chips. This is a fight for who will dominate technology, who will own the future of artificial intelligence. So, let's peel back the curtain and see what's really going on, because the forces at play here, they are reshaping our world as we speak.
As giants Huawei and Cambricon, as they ramp up their chip efforts, and a wave of Chinese upstarts prepares to propel the country's AI efforts forward.
I was actually speaking to two bankers in Singapore this morning. They say expect a wave of Chinese IPOs in 2026.
They've been dubbed the Four Dragons, a quartet of chip firms whose sole purpose is to beef up China's domestic hardware and reduce reliance on the US. Already, all four of them are eyeing or have clenched big capital infusions.
China's first ever domestic GPU maker, Moore Threads, is readying a public debut in Shanghai.
So, to really get what's happening, you have to start with the king. And for a long time, there was only one, NVIDIA. I mean, for years, their grip on the AI chip market wasn't just strong, it was absolute. You could say their kingdom was totally unshakable. They were the foundation, right? The bedrock the whole AI revolution was built on. But here's the crazy part. That kingdom, it's literally on the verge of vanishing. Just look at these numbers. I mean, look at the speed of this collapse. Back in 2024, NVIDIA had a massive 66% of the Chinese AI market. Now, look at the forecast. It drops off a cliff to just 30% in 2025. And by 2026, a projected 8%. You guys, that's not just a dip, that's a complete freefall. So the question is obvious, right? How on earth does a titan like that fall so far, so fast? I mean, what kind of force could possibly knock the most powerful player in the game off its throne? Well, the answer, it's all about the rise of a brand new technological dynasty. And this isn't some random competitor popping up. No, what we're seeing is a coordinated, super strategic, and incredibly well-funded force rising up to challenge the old guard. They're not just playing the game, they're literally rewriting the rulebook from scratch. This is a seismic shift in the global balance of tech power. Leading the charge, you've got this group of super agile, super aggressive startups. They call them the Four Little Dragons. And you've got to understand, these guys aren't just making cheap knockoffs. No way. They represent a whole new philosophy, a new way of thinking about AI hardware. And what's so smart is that they're each coming at the market from a totally different angle. You've got Moore Threads, who are trying to build this unified system for everything, from AI to graphics. Then there's Biru, and they're all about raw brute force power. Petaflop scale stuff for training those huge AI models. MetaX, they're getting clever, specializing their chips for very specific jobs. And finally, Inflam is all in on optimizing for these massive cloud-native data centers. It's like a multi-front assault, right? A coordinated strike aimed right at the heart of the AI chip market. But here's the thing, these dragons, they're not fighting this battle alone, not even close. They've got the backing of China's established national champions. We're talking about giants like Huawei, Baidu's Kunlun Sin division, and a company you absolutely need to know about, Cambricon, which has become the single most valuable AI firm in the entire country. Get this, $88 billion. That's the staggering projected value of Cambricon by 2026. This is not some little startup with a good idea. This is a financial behemoth. It's a massive signal that the market has total confidence in this new homegrown ecosystem. And if you want to see what that looks like in terms of momentum, just look at this chart. It's absolutely insane. In just the first half of 2025, Cambricon's revenue grew by, wait for it, 4,347% year over year. That's not just growth, that's an explosion. But you know, this kind of thing doesn't just happen by accident. It was the result of a really calculated move. A decision to stop playing by the old rules and just write their own. So, what was the secret weapon? What made all this possible? It comes down to a strategic pivot, something called the DeepSeek moment. Honestly, this is the core of the whole story. It's the twist that explains everything. It's a completely fundamental shift in how you even think about building AI power. So instead of just going for bigger, faster chips all the time, the brute force method, the whole idea behind the DeepSeek moment is to build smarter chips. It's all about designing silicon that's perfectly tailored, perfectly optimized for this new wave of super efficient AI software that's coming out. Here's a good way to think about it. On one side, you've got the traditional Western model. It's like using a bigger and bigger hammer. Just a relentless race to smaller and smaller nodes, 3 nanometers, 2 nanometers, which gets you more power, sure, but the cost is just staggering. Now look at the other side. That's the new Chinese model. It's more like a surgeon's scalpel. It focuses on clever design tricks like 3D stacking and chiplets to squeeze every last drop of performance per watt out of older, more available technology. And you know what the craziest part is? The ultimate irony? This whole breakthrough happened because of US export restrictions. The source material has a great name for it: constraint-driven innovation. Basically, being cut off from the latest Western chips didn't stop them. It actually forced them to get more creative. It forced them to become more efficient. And in the end, it made them a much more dangerous competitor. Okay, so this innovation, it's not just happening randomly in some lab. It's all part of a massive, state-directed strategy. The goal is to build a completely self-sustaining technology empire, to be totally independent, a concept we're calling silicon sovereignty. And believe me, they are putting their money where their mouth is. $47 billion. That's not a typo. That is the size of the war chest for something called the Big Fund 3. It's a state-backed investment fund with basically one mission: fuel this national strategy and lock down every single link in the semiconductor supply chain. And the plan is incredibly comprehensive. Step 1. Build up a world-class ecosystem of chip designers. Step 2. Get your domestic manufacturing, your foundries, up to speed. Step 3. Master advanced packaging. That's where you stack chip components vertically to get way more power out of them. And then, Step 4, the final crucial piece: create your own native software stack, so the whole system just works seamlessly together. This is a blueprint for total technological independence. It's a declaration of digital sovereignty. And look, this is not just some plan on a whiteboard anymore. This is real. Just look at these specs. You've got the Meta XC600 with a whopping 144 gigabytes of that cutting-edge HBM memory. Biren's BR100 is hitting over 1,000 T-flops, 1,000 trillion calculations per second. And then More Threads is out there claiming its new Huashan chip is getting pretty darn close to NVIDIA's absolute top-of-the-line Blackwell chip. The gap isn't just closing, it's closing fast. And here it is. This is what all that power actually looks like. You're looking at the Bitrin BR100. That thing has 77 billion transistors packed on what they call a dual-die chiplet. The easiest way to think about it is like 2 smaller, specialized chips that are working together as one giant, super powerful brain. This right here is the physical proof of that architectural efficiency we were talking about. It is real, and it's running in data centers as we speak. But just when you think you've got a handle on this new silicon race, the whole battlefield is about to shift again. The most radical, most mind-bending part of this story has nothing to do with silicon at all. It's about a revolutionary new technology where China is already trying to position itself as the leader. Yeah, we're talking about moving beyond the age of electrons. We're literally entering the post-silicon era. The breakthrough is this chip called LightGen, and it's an all-optical chip. What that means is, it doesn't use electrons to do its calculations, it uses photons, particles of light. And that just completely shatters the old physical limits on speed and how much energy you need. And the performance claims, they are just astounding. For certain generative AI tasks, like making super high-resolution images, they're saying LightGen is 100 times faster than a top-of-the-line NVIDIA GPU. Let that sink in. 100 times. That is not a small improvement. That's a revolutionary leap that could let them just sidestep the whole silicon race entirely. So that leaves us with one final, really provocative thought. Just as it seems China is achieving its goal of sovereignty in silicon, the very definition of what a computer is changing. The great tech war of our time is suddenly being reframed right before our eyes. The big question is no longer just about who can build the best silicon chip. Now it's about who will win the race for light. The future of everything. It's being written right now.